Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. The Taliban have declared the war in Afghanistan is over after they took control of the presidential palace in Kabul. In an interview, group spokesperson said that the Taliban do not want to live in isolation and call for peaceful international relations. Meanwhile, Afghan citizens have rushed into the Kabul airport in an attempt to secure a flight and flee the besieged capital. In another development, the United States and over 60 other countries have called for a safe departure of Afghans and international citizens.
Indus News, Pakistan's only news channel which has conducted the longest transmission with all the updates of unrest in Afghanistan.
Taliban this time are a different Taliban.
Yes, America failed in every respect.
It's an evolving situation and we're keeping an eye on it.
Indus News has conducted an 8-hour-long special transmission on Afghanistan. Renowned national and international political analysts participated in the broadcast and discussed every single aspect of the conflict. Israeli forces have killed 4 young Palestinians as they raided the Jenin refugee camp in northern West Bank. Palestinian media quoted health officials as saying that another person was wounded as Israeli soldiers raided Jenin city. In Haiti, the death toll from a powerful quake that struck the country on Saturday has risen to nearly 1,300, with over 5,700 injured. Authorities are struggling to bring doctors to the worst-hit areas before a major storm hits. The 7.2 magnitude earthquake flattened thousands of homes and buildings in the Caribbean nation. India has reported 417 deaths from COVID-19 and nearly 33,000 infections overnight. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 72 more people lost their lives to the virus and over 3,600 tested positive in the last 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 4.3 million lives and infected over 207 million people so far. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back. The Taliban have declared the war in Afghanistan is over after they took control of the presidential palace in Kabul. In an interview, group spokesperson said that the Taliban do not want to live in isolation and called for peaceful international relations. Mohammed Naim said the form of a new government in Afghanistan would be made clear soon. Meanwhile, the deputy of the Taliban, Mullah Brother Akhund, has congratulated Afghans and his fighters over the takeover. In a video message, Mullah Brother said that the group's real test begins now as it sought to provide for the people and to improve their lives. Following the announcements, Kabul airport, which is the main evacuation point, was jammed with civilians trying to flee. A United States official said that the troops fired in the air to prevent hundreds of civilians running onto the tarmac. Earlier, the Pentagon authorized another 1,000 troops to help evacuate U.S. citizens and Afghan interpreters. State Department spokesperson Ned Price said that the personnel had been relocated to the Hamid Karzai airport secured by the U.S. military. Major airlines, including United Airlines, British Airways, Virgin Atlantic, and Emirates, have relocated or suspended flights to Kabul. The United States and over 60 other countries have called for a safe departure of local and international citizens from Afghanistan. In a joint statement, they said those in power in the country must bear responsibility for the protection of human lives and the immediate restoration of civil order. Just after the Taliban's takeover of the Afghan capital, reactions started pouring in. Former U.S. president has called on his follower, Joe Biden, to resign over the Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan. In a statement, Trump said what Biden allowed to occur in Afghanistan is shameful. Protesters angry at the U.S. decision to withdraw from Kabul marched into Lafayette Square opposite the White House. They held signs aloft denouncing the Taliban and chanted, "Save Afghanistan," and "Biden, you betrayed us." Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called on all parties to exercise the utmost restraint. Guterres will address the Security Council today during an emergency session on the situation in Afghanistan. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern says her country plans to evacuate its citizens and about 37 Afghan nationals from Kabul. At a news conference, Ardern implored Taliban to uphold human rights and let foreigners and Afghans leave safely. Earlier, United Kingdom's Prime Minister Boris Johnson said Afghanistan should not become a breeding ground for terror. The British Parliament is being recalled on Wednesday to discuss the situation. For more on this, we are joined by Mr. Arshad Yousafzai, a political analyst speaking to us from Peshawar. Mr. Yousafzai, thank you so much for your time. Now, the Taliban's rapid takeover of Afghanistan uprooted the United States government's assessment, which had said that it would take 90 days for the group to take over Kabul. The pace of their advance surprised many observers, but some believe that it was inevitable. What's your take on this?
I think it has even surprised some of the Taliban leaders, because in their estimations, they had expected 60 days or 2 months to take over the whole country. But we have seen that they did it in less than 10 days. And apart from their military strength or will to fight in the country, I believe we also have to give credit to one of their senior leaders, Mullah Amir Khan Muttaqi, who had been working for many months on trying to convince the opponents in the government and also in the Afghan army and military commanders who could have fought the Taliban. So I think the surprise has many hard-working people behind it.
All right. Now, Mr. Yousafzai, now after the Taliban's takeover, what future do you see of Afghanistan's political factions and local militias?
Well, I don't think that they can survive Taliban now. They have been disbanded. Their leadership is hiding in other countries outside Afghanistan. Those who are staying in Afghanistan have to patch up with the Taliban. Although the Taliban have pardoned everybody, they would not allow anyone to regroup or try to take up arms against Taliban. And in that case, the Taliban will not be merciful to them anymore.
All right. Now, the Afghan citizens are rushing into the Kabul airport to flee the besieged capital. Are their lives in danger despite the Taliban's announcement for amnesty for all?
I think the fear remains there because it's uncertainty at the moment. People don't know what is going to happen to them. There are some unconfirmed reports that people have been dragged out of their houses, although the Taliban are clearly saying that in any such instances, they should be contacted. They have given their phone numbers for emergency contacts. The people worry that they would be targeted because Taliban are there, the leadership might be sincere and they are giving clear instructions, but it's always possible that the ground or the foot soldier cannot be controlled completely. So people are worried, yes.
All right. So, Mr. Yousafzai, would the international powers accept the Taliban's government or would they impose sanctions on Afghanistan?
I think they have to accept the Taliban, given that the Taliban have promised a lot more changes than in their past. And if they were to keep up with the changes or with their promises, and if they proceed accordingly, as they have promised, if they allow girls' education, if they provide health facilities equally to all around the people, if they do not take the basic human rights of the people, there should be no way for international community to disband or to abandon Taliban. And the country needs international support. Taliban are in power now. If they are willing to be peaceful enough, if they provide basic human rights to people, why shouldn't the international community help them?
All right. Mr. Arshad Yousafzai, thank you so much for speaking to Indus News. Pakistan has reaffirmed its support to an inclusive political solution in Afghanistan. Prime Minister Imran Khan and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan were discussing Kabul's rapidly evolving situation on call. Khan said Islamabad is facilitating the evacuation of diplomats and personnel of international organizations in Kabul. The Prime Minister said that the matter will be further deliberated upon in a National Security Committee meeting on Monday. Pakistan's Foreign Office has also urged Afghan leadership to work together for stability in Kabul. It also called on the international community to play its role for peace in the country. Meanwhile, an Afghan delegation is in Pakistan to discuss the peace and security in the war-torn country. Israeli forces have killed 4 young Palestinians as they raided the Jenin refugee camp in northern West Bank. Palestinian media quoted health officials as saying that another person was wounded as Israeli soldiers raided Jenin city. Meanwhile, in East Jerusalem, another Palestinian was forced to demolish his own house in the Khilat area of the town of At-Tur. In Hebron, Israeli colonizers installed an outpost and expanded another in Khirbat Zananota Palestinian village, south of Hebron. Palestinians in Hebron are also protesting against as the Israeli army protected contractors started construction in Ibrahimi Mosque. Palestinians see the construction at the UNESCO heritage site as a way to take over the entire site for Jewish visitors. In Haiti, the death toll from a powerful quake that struck the country on Saturday has risen to nearly 1,300 with over 5,700 injured. Authorities are struggling to bring doctors to the worst-hit areas before a major storm hits. Doctors had to treat injured patients outdoors as healthcare centers have run out of space. The Civil Protection Agency says that around 14,000 houses were destroyed in the natural disaster, suggesting the toll could rise further. The 7.2 magnitude earthquake has rekindled painful memories of the devastating 2010 tremor that killed an estimated 300,000 people. India has reported 417 deaths from COVID-19 and nearly 33,000 infections overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 4.3 million lives and infected over 207 million people so far. More in this report. With the resurgence of coronavirus driven by the Indian Delta variant, the end to the COVID-19 pandemic has gone even farther from sight. The United States accounts for more than 1/5 of the total COVID-19 cases for the first time since mid-February. The director of the National Institutes of Health said that the United States could soon see more than 200,000 new cases of COVID-19 every day. Meanwhile, the situation in southern states gets bleaker by the day. The state of Mississippi is struggling with vaccine hesitancy and low vaccination rates among the residents despite soaring infections.
7 or 8 months ago, we had people lined up at our front door waiting to get vaccinated. In fact, I was really climbing on the State Department of Health because we couldn't get enough vaccines.
Meanwhile, Serbia has authorized a third dose of vaccines for immunocompromised, health workers, and people vaccinated at least 6 months ago. In Australia, the biggest city of Sydney recorded its deadliest day, while residents in Melbourne face a further 2 weeks of lockdown. Hundreds of unarmed defense personnel joined thousands of extra police to set up roadblocks and enforce lockdown rules in parts of Sydney.
It's a horrible situation. We need to turn that around. But can I make this point? To suggest that we're going to have zero the whole way through until the pandemic ends across the world is, I don't think, a realistic proposition. Even the Doherty report talks about strong suppression.
Japan is reportedly set to extend its state of emergency lockdown in regions including Tokyo to the middle of September. Meanwhile, Indonesian President Joko Widodo said that the country must strike a balance between health and economic interest amid a surge in COVID-19 cases. Pakistan has reported 72 deaths from coronavirus and over 3,600 cases overnight. The health ministry says that the fatalities toll has risen to 24,478. It said that the country's caseload has surpassed 1.1 million. Meanwhile, more than 989,000 people have recovered so far. The health authority said that the positivity rate of infection stayed at 6.8%. There are more than 88,000 active cases, including over 4,700 in critical condition. The ministry says that Pakistan has administered more than 42.6 million vaccine doses to date. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Lebanon's group Hezbollah says it will begin importing gasoline and diesel from Iran. In a speech, Hassan Nasrallah said that the Lebanese government is no longer able to facilitate the people. Lebanon is experiencing a severe fuel shortage that has caused long lines at petrol stations and extended blackouts. Hospitals, bakeries, and other essential facilities have said that dwindling stocks will cause them to shut down. Yesterday, a fuel tank exploded in northern Lebanon, killing at least 28 people and injuring 79. Meanwhile, security forces fired tear gas at protesters gathered outside the Beirut home of Prime Minister-designate Najib Mikati. South Korea and the United States have kicked off their annual joint military training despite North Korea's warnings of a diplomatic and security crisis. Seoul's military says that the 9-day drills staged on the peninsula are based largely on computer stimulation and no-field training. It said that the exercise is defensive in nature. The number of participating troops will be restricted amid the ongoing COVID-19 situation. Meanwhile, Pyongyang has accused the two sides of pressing ahead with the war games despite its efforts for dialogue and peace. It warned of serious consequences, again halting its daily hotline communication with Seoul. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has called an early elections for the 20th of September. The announcement comes as the polls indicate his minority Liberal government looks within reach of forming a majority. The Prime Minister met the Governor-General, who accepted his formal request to dissolve the Parliament. Talking to reporters, Trudeau said Canadians need to choose how we finish the fight against COVID-19. He said he needed a new mandate to ensure voters' approval for his government's plan to recover from the pandemic.
As Canadians know, this is a moment where we're going to be taking decisions that will last not just for the coming months, but for the coming decades. And Canadians deserve their say. That's exactly what we're going to give them.
The newly released data shows 71% of eligible Canadians are fully vaccinated amid fourth wave of the pandemic. Now moving on, in Zambia, opposition leader Hakainde Hichilema has won the presidential election after defeating incumbent Edgar Lungu. Hichilema secured nearly 3 million votes out of a total 7 million registered voters, while Lungu came in second. The massive win means Hichilema does not have the contest to run any runoffs amid meeting the constitutional 50.1% threshold. Meanwhile, the losing candidate Lungu says that the poll was not free and fair, alleging rivals of committing violence. Hichilema, an economist, is the 7th elected president of Zambia since its independence in 1964. He would face a daunting task of turning around the economic fortunes of one of the world's poorest countries. In Peru, thousands of people took to the streets of the capital Lima against the government of the newly elected president Pedro Castillo. They marched outside the Joint Command headquarters with banners, megaphones, and horns. They demanded the resignation of Castillo and Prime Minister Guaido Bellido, who is under investigation for allegedly supporting terrorism. Castillo, backed by a Marxist party, won the election by a razor-thin margin against conservative Keiko Fujimori. His victory has shaken the political elite and worried companies, fearful of his plans to hike taxes on mining. A massive wildfire outside of Jerusalem sent a thick cloud of smoke over the city as authorities struggled to contain the blaze. The cloud stretched over much of the city, covered in the skies overhead with a black and orange blanket of smoke. Several small outlying communities have been forced to evacuate. Hundreds of firefighters are battling the blaze while hot, dry weather and heavy winds complicates the efforts. In Venezuela, an Olympic medal winner cyclist amazed the public with his incredible stunts in a neighborhood recently run by violent gangs. Details on this report. Spectators cheered with applause and laughter as Venezuelan Olympic medalist Daniel Diaz flied with his bike in the previous troubled neighborhood of Cota 905. The cyclist showed his stunts in a makeshift track that was placed in the street in a bid to present positive image of his region. Many recorded the tricks while others took pictures with him.
It is exciting to be able to share with people at Cota 905 finally. We had planned it months ago, but it was not possible. We are very excited because we bring joy to the community.
The 36-year-old Deers, a living legend of BMX freestyle, won the silver medal for Venezuela in the new freestyle event at the Tokyo Olympics. He dreams of competing at the Paris 2024 Olympics as well.
We are thrilled to have here those athletes who represented us at the Olympics. The children are thrilled after everything that we have been through, the violence of armed groups.
Almost a month ago, there were clashes in the area of Caracas between police and criminal gangs that left at least 26 people dead. Fighting went on for more than 2 days until a deployment of 2,500 troops occupied the conflict zone. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Taliban have declared that the war in Afghanistan is over after they took control of the presidential palace in Kabul. For more on this, we are joined by Ms. Samira Khan, our correspondent in Torkham border. Now, Samira, can you please update us on the current situation at the Pak-Afghanistan border?
Right now, I'm here at the biggest trade crossing point between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and it is called Torkham Gate, and it is said to be the largest trade and pedestrian crossing point between these two countries. It was closed for a couple of weeks due to COVID situation, but right now, why I'm here, I am here to capture all these exclusive shots. In my background, you can see that the border crossing at on the other side of the border. I'm talking about Afghanistan, where the advanced movements of Taliban, they were in process for quite a few times. But right now, what is exclusive from this point is that this crossing point has been taken over by Taliban. The control on the other side of the border at the side of Afghanistan is with Taliban officially. Because earlier in the morning, the city of Jalalabad was it just fell to Taliban. It was officially handed over to Taliban, and the governor, in a simple ceremony, handed over the control of the entire Vilayat. Vilayat is said to be a province in Afghan language in Dari. It was handed over to Taliban, and now after having control of Nangarhar province, they took over Jalalabad, which is the central city of Nangarhar province. And after taking control of Jalalabad, it is hardly 25 to 30 kilometers away from this huge trade and crossing point between Pakistan and Afghanistan. So these are the scenes right now. And we can now officially say that the Taliban have hoisted their Islamic Emirates flag right now. It is right there in front of me on the side of Afghanistan, and it has been replaced with the official red, black, and that official flag of Afghanistan. But I'm just trying to speak to a few officials that they are representing the Islamic Emirate. The Islamic Emirate is the name to the state that has been dedicated by the Taliban for the structure of their government that is going to be claimed by Taliban in Afghanistan soon. So I'm just trying to speak to some of the officials right now. Let's see if they agree to speak to us. It will be another insightful discussion with them that what exactly they want in Afghanistan. And once again, the scenes are right there. And on our side, it is the border side of Pakistan Gate, Torkham, and everything is quite normal here. The Pakistani officials are present right now at the gate, and they are dealing with the assigned and designated officials from the Taliban. And after the fall of Spin Boldak, the Spin Boldak and another trade crossing point which is very eminent and prominent between Pakistan and Afghanistan, Chaman and Spin Boldak trade crossing point has also been reopened for the two-way traffic. That is, majority of the traffic is aimed to boost the trade volume between the two countries. So right here, I'm signing off from here. Samira Khan, Pakistan Gate, Torkham, reporting for Indus.
Samara Khan, thank you so much for updating us regarding what's happening on the Pakistan border. And now moving on into the world of business. China's value-added industrial output has risen 6.4% year-on-year in July. The National Bureau of Statistics attributes the surge to continuing recovery of production demand. However, it missed the analysts' forecast of 7.8% after spiking over 8% in June. According to the NBS data, China's retail sales also grew about 8.5% in July from a year earlier. Meanwhile, fixed asset investment rose over 10% in the first 7 months of the year from the same period last year. China's economy rebounded to its pre-pandemic growth levels, driven by surprisingly strong exports. Asia-Pacific stocks slipped as investors reacted to the release of Chinese economic data for July. Retail sales in China rose 8.5% in July, but are far lower than the forecasted rise of 11.5%. Mainland Chinese stocks traded mixed, with Shanghai's composite rising 0.3%, while the Shenzhen component shed marginally. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index also declined 0.75%. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 and Topix Index both dropped by more than 1.5%. Shares in Australia also dipped, with the S&P and ASX 200 almost 0.5% lower. In cricket, the West Indies beat Pakistan by 1 wicket in the first test of the 2-match series in Jamaica. This marks the winning start to the hosts' ICC World Test Championship campaign. The Green Shirts set a target of 168 runs for the Windies to win the match. Defending a small total, Pakistani bowlers pulled off a stellar performance, making the host work hard to reach the target. Shaheen Shah freely bagged 4 wickets, while Hassan Ali sent 3 batsmen to the pavilion. However, last wicket pair of Kemar Roach and Jayden Sales provided an unbeaten 17-run stand to take the host to victory. Sales was named player of the match for picking up a total of 8 wickets during the contest. For more on this, we are joined by Mr. Ali Mehdi, a cricket expert speaking to us from Islamabad. Ali Mehdi, thank you so much for your time. Now, Ali, Pakistan's inconsistent batting has yet again failed to deliver and proved to be a disappointment. Having discussed the reasons behind this persistent inconsistency time and again, what steps do you suggest to the cricket board and the team management that they must take to overcome this longing crisis?
Well, the problem with Pakistan is that for a long time coming now that they haven't concentrated much on the batting. Should it be any of the formats, T20, ODI, and Test cricket. It's very unfortunate that, despite having such a great arsenal when it comes to bowling, the batting is extremely inconsistent. With the batting, Pakistan is only dependent on 2 or 3 players like the likes of Babar Azam, Rizwan, Fawad Alam to some extent. And the other the players have been going like passengers. They haven't been scoring the runs, so it's very unfortunate. I think that going forward, right now we have 1 test match left in this Pakistan versus West Indies series, after which Pakistan needs to go back to the drawing board. All these players needs to go back to domestic and get their currency, which is in the form of runs. Everybody should be selected on merit and should be given a good opportunity. But at the same time, they have to work on their skill set and get runs. Otherwise, these players, Pakistan is not going to perform consistently on home and away tours in Test cricket.
All right. Now, Ali, while the batting suffered, the Green Shirts continued to impress with their fierce bowling lineup. Would you attribute the star performance by Pakistani pacers to the wicket, or was there a consistent form?
I think it's a combination of both. I think that the wicket actually helped a lot. It was a green top wicket. It assisted the bowlers a lot. I thought the fast bowlers did extremely well, in particular Shaheen Shah, who got about 9 wickets. He was absolutely brilliant. Other than that, Hassan Ali, bowled with ruthless aggression, bowled very well, got wickets, bowled with a lot of consistency and with a lot of heart. Abbas also bowled line and that. But other than that, it has to be the other bowlers have to also pitch in too. Fahim did bits and pieces, but it's Yasir Shah, the spinner, who actually didn't really perform much to the mark. Yes, he didn't bowl a lot, but at the same time, he needs to contribute too, if Pakistan is going to win. conditions were suiting fast bowlers too, but at the same time you need, the spinners and the part-time bowlers also to pitch into if Pakistan want to, win test matches.
All right, Ali, having lost 4 of their last test matches, the West Indies have made a winning start to their ICC World Test Championship campaign. Pakistan, on the other hand, were on the wrong foot. How would this add up to their score on the ICC competition's ranking?
It's very unfortunate because this was a golden opportunity for Pakistan to win another series in the West Indies after we're doing it for the first time in 2017. And Pakistan has itself to blame only. Had they batted well, had they bowled, had they batted better and, taken their catches, I think they would have won the test match yesterday. But right now, when it comes to the ICC test rankings, West Indies are going to go up slightly a bit too. And this new World Test Championship cycle, it's now the West Indies has actually started off very well, whereas Pakistan, have started on a losing foot. Now, all is not lost. Pakistan have another test match starting next week, and they should learn to make amends, work on their batting, and try to draw the series rather than losing the series in the West Indies.
All right, Ali Mehdi, thank you so much for speaking to Indus News. In football, Barcelona have begun their post-Messi era with a 4-2 home win over Real Sociedad in their first game of the La Liga season. They are third in the league standings with 3 points, while Real Madrid are on top of the goal difference. A header from Gerard Piqué fired the Catalans ahead of the front of the 20,000 fans at Camp Nou. Martin Braithwaite capitalized on their lead with a double striking on either side of the halftime. Sociedad managed to pull 2 back. However, Sergio Roberto struck in added time to seal the hosts' victory. In another fixture, defending champions Atletico Madrid also started the season with a 2-1 win over Catalia Vigo. In the English Premier League, Tottenham Hotspur have stunned the reigning champions Manchester City 1-0 in an absorbing contest. They were playing without their goal-scoring talisman, Harry Kane. City enjoyed the Lions' share of possession throughout the match, but failed to find the net. The Spurs were a constant threat on the counter-attack and got their winner from Son Heung-min in the 55th minute. Meanwhile, West Ham United twice came from behind to beat Newcastle United 4-2 at St. James Park. Aaron Cresswell said that Benrahma, Thomas Schoch and Michail Antonio were on the target for the Hammers. It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at Indus.News.